Hello, Silas here. Just a short video on the media and Trump and just America. So last night I saw this video of Project Veritas, which is a company. It's an actual reporting company. It's an actual news company where actual reporting is done. They go undercover and they check out what's happening in different situations. I think one of the first stories I heard from them was going undercover and talking to some Planned Parenthood people, which is the ostensibly women's health company that's run in the United States that also handles abortion. So these people were talking about what they do with the body parts of the aborted fetuses and things like that. And that brought up some uproar. Towards the election, they had discussed different things. They had gone and done investigative reporting on different situations, such as one specific was post the election with someone like Mike Cernovich was having something called the Deplorable, which is Trump fans and Trump reporters and people involved who were supporting Trump. They were having an event after the inauguration, and some people were planning on, at least in these interviews, in these Project Veritas reporting, they had planned to go to that event and put, I think, some kind of smelling gas or something in the air filtration system. Sounded like some weird James Bondian or some really crappy, like made for TV film type villainous plan they were doing. But anyway, so they've been doing these exposing things. Last night they just came out and said, had somebody involved in CNN, I think one of the producers was involved in CNN, was talking about how they've known that there's no evidence for the Trump Russia allegations. Even has a guy saying like, yes, I think the president is right in saying that it's a witch hunting, that we're hunting him, that there's no smoking gun. And you're just pointing out that with all these leaks going on, if there was actual information, why wouldn't they have released it? And then you tie that in with the fact that they say a big majority of people who voted for Hillary actually think Russia was involved with that Russia actually affected the election. Now, if you ask them how, they don't really say what. And in this reporting, in this Project Veritas video, which of course I'll leave links to, the guy says, the CEO of CNN comes out and actually says, okay, it's really good that there was a story. I think it was a NATO story. I'm sorry if that's not the one. But a story came out where he said, okay, yes, this is news. He comes in and says, good job at covering this. And then says, let's get back to the Russia thing. And I had noticed that on a few things. For example, like the Comey thing. There's different stories have been coming out where you watch this happen, CNN covers it for a day, and then it goes back to the Russia thing. And then you have people on the left, people who watch CNN, who are just getting this constantly, Russia, more Russia, more Russia. And they think that, yes, there's actually something going on here. There's actually some connection. There's something. Why would these people be talking about this if it's not true? And that's a big point. CNN viewership may be low. There may be a lot of people going to alternative sources of news. But there's still a massive amount of people who still watch CNN and say, these people would not be covering this unless something was happening. And now you have somebody in CNN saying like, yes, there's nothing happening. We don't have the evidence. We're still covering this because it's ratings. It's a business. To me, to many people listening to this video, that's not news to you. This is something that you've known. It's a business. They're running a business. This is the system. This is how it works. And for me, that is one of the positives of having Trump in there, was during the process, during running for the election, he exposed the established media sources as propaganda wings, pretty much. He exposed them as businesses with embedded interests instead of actually just reporting information to you. There was a time when that's not what it was. But now you get to a situation where a major percentage, over 75% of the coverage at times, could be a week, is just discussing Trump, discussing Russia, and he's making amazing ratings to them. And I know there was a time when they were saying that during the election they were covering they covered how much is Hillary covered and how much is Bernie Sanders covered, and they said Hillary Clinton was covered a lot more than Bernie Sanders, which I do agree. But then now they brought in Trump and they were covering him a lot more than Hillary Clinton. But now, is coverage just coverage? If they're covering somebody and saying, yes, this person is awesome, but if they're covering somebody and just flinging mud, is that the same as coverage? To them, it's still getting ratings. To them, it's still getting people to come and watch. But for the person, is it positive? Okay. getting back to the point. So, what is knowing? For me, I knew there was no evidence. I mean, I didn't know there's no evidence, but I thought if there was evidence, it'd be out. The most random things have been leaking that if there was evidence about the Russia connection, first of all, how would Russia actually do this and affect this many elections? Would it do it in the same way that this CNN reporter actually said, or this CNN member actually said, yes, the US government has been involved with affecting other elections as well. It's been involved in, this is something that people also know. I think part of the reason maybe people think that, yes, America might have been involved, Russia might have been involved in affecting the American election, is because they personally know that they have effect on other elections in other countries, whether it's just through social means or other more nefarious means. I do recall there was a few elections ago in Kenya where the US ambassador was being accused of having some involvement with the election there. And it hasn't even had to be direct involvement. It's a simple thing that some country comes and says, yes, if you maybe vote against, maybe if you vote and pass like laws on letting homosexuals get married, it may be good for you in this financial sense, or you might sign this deal with you. Things like this occur all the time, and I'm not even against that. I mean, if you consider something positive and you say like, yes, if I consider something positive, if somebody else does that same positive thing, chances are I will associate with them more than if they didn't. I mean, that's a thing, and then the governments are just a group of people, so if a group of people like something, gets to the governmental level, then likely that same group of people would like to associate with other groups of people that do the same thing. So I'm not even completely against that. But with this Russia situation, it's been set up as a nefarious situation. It's been set up as, this is, Putin is like the puppet master for Trump. And there's just these absurdities that we see this. Okay, now this Project Veritas thing has come out. How many people are going to see this? I was just talking to a friend yesterday, and he had just gotten back from China. And he was telling me how when you're in that country, all you're seeing is CNN and MSNBC. So you're not really getting to see what's actually happening. Because my big positive of Trump was he's gotten people involved. Everybody's talking about Trump. Now, celebrities are talking about Trump. Sports stars are talking about Trump. Like, your grocer is talking about Trump. So people are now actually politically involved. People are actually interested in this. And they were talking about how there was this related thing I was talking about. What was it? It was in a podcast talking about how, I think it was post 1930s. It was around the same time when schools started, when public schools started, but it was something before that. I might write that down here if I actually should say it. But it was some effect that got the human population, that got the American population a lot more aware of what was going on in the country. Oh yeah, it was this. It was a podcast about the robber barons, about how Rockefeller, creating kerosene, got people to be able to read at night, got people to be able to get more information into themselves, extended their days by making cheap oil, cheap light. Now this got people more educated on what was going on in the world, what was going on in their politics. And that way they got more politically involved in their lives. They got more of an ability to take control of their own lives, get their own information, make themselves better people. And there was definitely people who were interested in the current paradigm at that time who weren't too happy that, all of a sudden these quote unquote sheep, or this level of sheep, the sheep are getting smarter, so we need better cages, or we need to try better to control these people, to control their voting patterns, to control their needs, and to make them think that we are the people who can actually give them what they want instead of them finding better ways or doing it on their own. Now, I think that's a similar thing with what Trump has done. Now you get to this point with this Project Veritas thing. These kind of things are out there. Now people are out there, people are activated. You can't just pretend you don't know what's going on. I mean, you still can, but a lot more people are activated. And it doesn't even take that many people for you to actually be activated. Part of the reason I'm making this video is because I was following Trump, because I was following a lot of these alternative sources of media that encouraged me to get out and talk about these things. But let me get back to this. Okay, so he was talking about how in China you hear that. Some of the times during the election, I was going back to Kenya and seeing what kind of coverage you get from that end. So now, with the Project Veritas thing, we've been sitting here in America. Most people have been watching this, or if you've been watching this and you're in America, you're seeing what's on the TV. You're seeing what's on CNN, what's on the New York Times, what's on the Washington Post, what's on MSNBC, what's on Fox News. You're seeing these major outlets. Now, You also have access to all these alternative sources on YouTube, in blogs, in podcasts, and other sources of finding information on people on the street. So you might be hearing counter narratives to what's being put out there. You may have very low confidence in the media, in the main established media sources in the country that you're in. So when you see this Project Veritas, you might understand that you might have known this information already. So you're just like, yeah, this has happened. I already had my confidence lost in this. But from abroad, the main sources people are still getting doesn't have to be a place like China where other sources are actually blocked, like YouTube is blocked, Facebook is blocked. But even if you're in a country where nothing else is blocked, most of the sources you're getting about information about America are still CNN, are still MSNBC, is still the Washington Post, is still these major sources. So if you're abroad, you're looking at America and you're probably buying into the Russia narrative a lot more than even locals are who are watching it on a regular basis. I think with the locals, maybe their life hasn't really changed that much as is. So even if the more Russia thing is there, like, okay, it's still pretty much the same as when Barack Obama was in, a few hundred days ago. It doesn't even seem, it seems like a lot longer, at least for me. It seems, I can't even imagine he was in there. But anyway, so now this information comes out. And this is one thing I'm trying to wonder. Some people will hear this information and it's stuff they already knew. Some people will hear this information and they don't care. They're just like, yes, this guy, sure, he was told about this. Like the same thing with the Planned Parenthood thing. When that abortion thing came up, people who were supportive of more access to abortions, people who were quote unquote pro-choice, they didn't really care. People who were pro-life, they already knew this information, and I guess it did embolden them a bit. And there was a post I wanted to release after that got really emotional because what was being described was horrific. So in a way, like, this kind of information comes out in a good way, where it comes out now, somebody who's on that side, on supportive of what's being exposed in this video, this information can come out, and then if it's on the news, you can say, okay, maybe you have that ability to say, I don't know, maybe they're just not releasing this information. But when you have somebody behind the scenes who isn't putting on a show for the public, he's just coming out and ostensibly having an honest conversation, and they tell you this kind of truth information. Now it gets to the point where if you know someone in your life and you say, have you seen this Project Veritas video where the CNN guy says, yes, there's no proof, and he's just laying it out. Where before, when you were telling them that person, before when somebody on probably the right or somebody in Fox News was saying, okay, someone like Hannity would say, CNN has no proof, so why are they talking about this? Then you'd say, oh, they're invested, they're on the opposite side, so of course they'd say that. But now when you have somebody in CNN coming out and saying, yes, we have no proof, or they don't think there's proof. Now, if you give this to somebody, and somebody on the left now still says, yes, the Russia thing is probably still there. After this, after the Comey hearing, James Comey was a former the former FBI leader, head of the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Now, when you have all this information coming out, and these people still come out and say, like, no, this Russia thing is still the way it is. That's still happening. That's still true. Donald Trump is a plant. From this information, that gets to the point where you can now say, okay, with this person, they're probably not going to come around to this. What is knowing? What does it take for this person to know what they're saying is probably untrue? It might not be. They might not be a level. It might be a point where it's an addiction, where it's a point of they're just hooked on this. When you have a situation of this man who goes out and shoots at Republican... There was something in there was an interview with Tucker Carlson and somebody who was saying that this last attack with Republican Scalise being shot at the baseball practice, this is what it looks like when somebody takes that Second Amendment right to be armed and fight a despotic government. Now, he had a point in that sense, but then what makes that person think this is a despotic government? What makes a person think it's a despotic government is what makes them know that. Because if you don't believe something, to me, if you believe something and you don't actually act on it, it doesn't really matter. If I told you right now I believe gravity doesn't exist, but I don't like spend my time jumping out of windows, it doesn't really matter. But if I say I believe gravity doesn't exist and then I jump out of a window, now then you can say, okay, then I think then you can truly say this person believes this thing. So what makes that shooter believe that it's a despotic government and he can carry out that Second Amendment right? It's people like CNN coming out and just saying, oh, it's a business. We're just going to push this Russian narrative. We're going to push these people. That's what gets somebody to believe. And that belief and the actions. So what gets somebody to act on that? What gets somebody to take that next level? What's the level of information does somebody need? How many Project Veritas videos need to come out for somebody to believe that's what's happening? How much information does have to happen? How much does the life of that person have to change on a day-to-day basis for them to think, yes, now this country is being ran by some Russian Manchurian candidate or something? What has to happen? Yeah, well, this was a lot longer of a video than I thought, but this was pretty much just to discuss what I'm thinking is going to happen from this Project Veritas video, which I think it's going to be the first of a series of videos. James O'Keefe, who's the guy who's running Project Veritas, does amazing work. You should definitely follow his work. He said there's going to be a lot more videos coming out about establishment media. So I think, to me, the positive aspect of Trump, the most positive aspect was tearing down the wall, not building a wall, but tearing down the wall of control over information. It's gotten to the point where now with the information age, it's gotten to the point where humans, people, can actually get out there and find other sources instead of just thinking this is the best source. And it's not necessarily that the other sources are going to die immediately, but it's just exposing other sources for their bias and their business nature, and them not necessarily just being in it to deliver X information to you. And I'm not even thinking that in the past there was a point when they were. I mean, I think in the past they definitely were less editorials, or they'd say this is an op-ed piece where I'm giving my opinion and this is just direct information, but they still selected what information was being given. Now you get to the point where you can give just raw information, where you can have the information put out there, and then now you have the opportunity to take that information and learn it. And that's the thing. You have the opportunity, so please do it. If you consider something important, please go out there and find the information. Check, find time. Whether you're on the subway, on the commute to work, you're just sitting somewhere waiting, you're in the grocery store line, just get on your phone. If you find something important, try to find the sources, go on the different encyclopedias out there, find as close to the original source as you can, because that information is out there. There's people who would love to have access to information like you, like most of you listening to this have. So please take advantage of that. And yeah, check out the Project Veritas video. Let me know what you guys think, if it actually will change anything for your life, or if you know people who were supporting the Russian narrative who you think this might change their opinion on it. Or how many people do you actually think will actually see this? You know, going back to the China thing, he was talking about how in China and other countries in the world, China, how does Trump say it? China. But anyway, so, okay, how many people actually take the time to go see this information? You know, in China, it's China. In China, you can't. Okay, in China, you can't actually even probably access Project Veritas. But in America, you can. How many people do you know will actually not even if you told them about the Project Veritas thing, they just wouldn't even watch it. They'd be like, no, it doesn't exist. Like, or just how many people just don't get the time to go see it. So anyway, like, share, and subscribe. Check out the Project Veritas video. It's going to be in the link below. And till next time, bye.